Matt, I love today's topic, the age-old question, should I pay my mortgage off early or invest? Let's say someone has a pile of cash sitting in the bank right now. Perhaps it's in a money market earning 5%, which is very likely right now. Let's talk through whether these safe returns have changed the conventional wisdom when it comes to paying off your mortgage. So before you pay off your mortgage, you suggest that you first consider whether you need the liquidity.
Good question, Aaron. So on liquidity, what we're really, the most important thing is we want to make sure we always have your 6 months reserves.
Right.
So one rule of life is after you've acquired some assets and you have some money is never be broke, right? So we don't want to take every penny that we have out and pay off our mortgage and be broke, because what happens if you got laid off and you lost your job? Well, then you lose your house, right? And you don't qualify for a mortgage, right? So you couldn't do a HELOC. So liquidity is important, 6 months reserves, but beyond that, we don't want any more than that in the bank. That's lazy money. We got to beat inflation, and there's ways we can do that with lower risk.
Mhm. So next, you need to determine how the returns compare. Compare the ROI of a mortgage paydown versus investing in the market. And the return on your debt paydown is straightforward enough. It is going to be your mortgage rate.
Exactly. Aaron, roughly 80% of the people out there right now have a mortgage under 5%.
Yeah.
So if that's you and we have money markets that are paying 5%, I would be very cautious about taking a whole lot of money out and paying off your mortgage early. Now,
Mhm.
that being said, we'll talk about some other things in a few seconds, like life stage, where we'll get into more weeds there. But we do want to make sure that it's something to consider. It
Yes, so
definitely.
many moving parts. Exactly. So you mentioned it, your life stage next. In other words, you need to determine what is your time horizon.
Exactly. So if you're in your 30s and you're a young couple and you're high income earners, and when you're in your 30s, you're probably not high asset yet, but you're high income. So for that couple, sure, let's get that house paid off, and you can consider getting into rentals, right? Get a rental income. That's a great play to use later in life. But when you get to 70, you're not going to want to have a rental. You're going to want to pay that off and have a simple life. So if you're three main stages, you have your 30s, 40s, and then you have 60s, where you're maybe a few years from retirement, and then you're in retirement. Different answers for each situation. And the big question is, are you a high income earner with high assets? Are you a low income earner with high assets? There's so many different variables to consider. But that's why we're here. We're
Mhm.
really here to help people
Right.
dig into those weeds and see what's best for you.
And the next variable would be those tax implications.
Yeah, so back in the day, the idea was, you get your write-offs. You're going to write off the mortgage interest. There's some new rules that came out where, if for mortgages over 750,000, we don't get all the deductions that we used to in the past. The standard deduction is so high now, the majority of people just take the standard deduction, because your mortgage interest is not exceeding for most people, it doesn't exceed the standard deduction.
Right. And then last, of course, we've talked about all the numbers game, right? But Matt, there's a whole other component to it. Will paying off your mortgage bring peace of mind?
That is the big question. So back in the day, people were so concerned about, getting that mortgage just
Right.
done out of your life. You don't have to worry about it. But there's a lot of variables. For example, if you're a high income earner, let's say in retirement, you and your wife have 10 grand a month coming in, and the social security pensions, and your mortgage is 2 grand or 1,500, and you're low asset, you got 100 grand to your name. That's a situation where we most likely would not recommend paying off your mortgage. You're high income, it's guaranteed for life, right? So there are a lot of factors. That's why we're here to help. And the best thing to do is talk to a fiduciary advisor, which is what we are, because we're going to give you advice that's in your best interest. And I
Absolutely. I
call
think
us.
it's so helpful to talk it through, Matt, because people feel like, hey, I want to go into retirement debt free. But when you actually crunch the numbers, then it might bring peace of mind to recognize that you can keep that debt, right? It isn't terrible.
Yeah, and if some people are 5 years from retirement, well, let's talk it up. Maybe we can, figure out a plan to get your house paid off in the next 5 years. If you're
Right.
70 years old in retirement and you're cash flow tight, there's so many variables there, and we just want to talk to people one on one. That's what we
Right, absolutely. And that's what, of course, I am hearing. There is no one right answer. So, Matt, if somebody wants to talk this through with you and crunch the numbers, what's the best way to reach you?
Give me a call at 425-256-3105 and just set an appointment. We'd love to help you.
Perfect. Matt, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Aaron.